Well, welcome everybody to the online program for the Sunshine Coast Health Center. And last time we talked about Dr. Wong's upcoming book. Probably be published in the new year sometime, 2012, maybe January. This time in the program, I think we'll get a little more practical. We'll actually look at 4 therapists who deal with this meaning and purpose stuff in their actual work, particularly with people who have addiction problems, and have written about it, and this is why we know them. And one of the common things that all of them follow is that they don't treat an addict or an addiction. They're actually much more interested in the human being and all the complexities and complications that go along with that. And if you think about it, people who treat an addiction or an addict, they actually assume that by virtue of having this problem with drugs and alcohol or gambling or sex or whatever it is, that this means that they have common personality traits or even common personalities. There's even this book out there called The Addictive Personality. One of my pet peeves, because 5 decades of research, no one's ever been able to find this mysterious addictive personality. It turns out that people with drug and alcohol problems or other addictions, there is various is the wide range of society. So that's one of the reasons that we're looking at an individual, because at Sunshine Coast we don't believe that just because you use drugs somehow you're all in denial or narcissistic and all of these other things that people marshal up to explain addiction. Now, people are always complicated, unique human beings, and then the response to living a life that has little personal meaning, then that becomes the addiction. But the complications for people, everybody has a different story, all of these factor into that lack of meaningful living. So that's why we deal with that stuff. At any rate, the first guy we're talking about is, his name is Jonathon Diamond, pretty famous guy. And he wrote a very famous book called Narrative Means to Sober Ends. And according to Diamond, he believes that, quite literally, we are the stories we tell ourselves. It's not like, well, we figure out everything about our life and then make a story about it. No, he says it's the actual story of these things that we tell ourselves, how we make sense of the world, that this actually tells us who we are and what we find meaningful in life. Okay, so his therapy, what he does is he takes people whose stories of their lives may not be working out all that good for them. Maybe with an addiction problem, they think, oh yeah, I need a drink. I gotta have a drink. This feeling I'm having is totally unacceptable and I absolutely must have this drink, right? So such a thing as this story of our life. And then once I have one drink, oh, that's it, I'm powerless and all that kind of thing, right? And according to Diamond, if we truly believe this, if this is a story that we tell ourselves, then in fact, that's going to be our reality, right? So we're going to need a drink. We're going to feel powerless over, if we have a beer or something like that, right? So what he does in therapy is help them create another story for themselves. And this story is much more beneficial to them, is much more constructive, more helpful to helping them live the kinds of lives they want to lead. And if all that sounds kind of familiar, that's good, because that's a lot of what we do at Sunshine Coast. So through a bunch of techniques and different things, strategies he uses, is to help the person create this new story. And the new story might be, well, I'm not a failure, but I've done a lot of things that didn't work out, so maybe I can learn from it. Or maybe hitting bottom. Maybe this is part of my story, and maybe I needed to hit bottom in order to go on and live this fantastic life. I mean, it could be any number of reworkings of the story, but the key thing is to make this story, make up this story in a way that's going to be now helpful to us, more responsive to reality. Okay? Maybe I'm not the worst person on the planet. Maybe Maybe all these relationships I'm having that aren't working out, maybe, yeah, maybe I have a big part in that. Right? All these kinds of things. Right? Anyway, that's Jonathon Diamond. And we'll be back next week with another one of these expert therapists who practices a meaning-oriented therapy for addictions.